Now, there are two ways in which we have all been primed to take the bait of giving up our liberties. The first thing was to keep us all in separate silos, because nothing is more scary to those who would have authoritarian or totalitarian control than a population that acts in concert. So it would be very helpful to anybody who wanted to control the whole of humanity, to have humanity split up into little chunks that could either be used to fight each other so that they dissipate their energies by upsetting themselves, or uh, people who, by pursuing their personal self-interest, aren't interested in joining up with their fellow man. And there are two vectors along which this can so easily be done. One is race. If, for example, you have been taught that people of other races are others, who don't perhaps matter as much, who aren't perhaps worth as much, as indeed has been happening throughout human history since the 1500s or so, in relation to Europe and the rest of the world, it makes it very much more difficult for us to rebel against that social programming which other people. You feel, in part, as if you're letting your community down. It doesn't matter what you say in public, it is the ultimate behavior that counts. And if you look at the outputs of our world society, we will see a definite streak of xenophobia and racism worldwide. Now, be that as it may, there is another vector along which we are divided so we can be ruled, and that is class. If you're a totalitarian, you can't split yourself off from the rest of the population. You need to bring a few people into the fold, give them privileges so that you can, through them, control the masses, the hoi polloi. This has been an ancient trope of human management. It was how empire was created. You would actually go into the place that you colonize and then set above the locals some of their number to act as your agents. Their privileges, depending on the bribes, effectively, because it's a bribe you're offering them, by setting them up in that position, doesn't mean for a nanosecond that they are equal to you, the colonizing power. By setting them up in that position, you can now effectively turn that population in on itself to fight itself. And while they're fighting themselves, of course, there is no way they are going to attack the real person who is actually enslaving all of them. And that is how class works. You'll get the middle and the professional classes who were given a few more privileges, and they will then be encouraged not to care so much for those who have fewer privileges, because they feel that however bad things get, they'll be kind of taken care of by the system. Why? Because the system has looked after them till now. What is curious is that in every system of totalitarianism, when the system starts to go down, the totalitarians treat their own people with as much contempt as those that they othered. I'll just give you one example with Adolf Hitler. Instead of throwing in the towel, in good time to stop many innocent German lives being lost, he decided that, well, he actually said, well, look, if you guys can't beat the world, then you're not what I thought you were, and you deserve to be smashed to pieces. And a lot of destruction was wreaked on Germany before the Second World War ended. And this pattern has played out throughout human history in that, for example, the very colonial powers that went out and colonized Africa had, prior to colonizing Africa, treated their own people under the feudal system pretty much in the same way. So what we forget is that the way any authority treats the other is the way one day it will treat its own people. And the bribe that's being offered to its own people to avert its eyes from the reality of how the other has until now been treated is just what it is. It's simply a bribe. When the chips are down, people will realize that there are two groups: those who would control humanity and humanity. And yet, like the project on the training ground in the soccer club, this thing has been rehearsed and played for so long that people can't possibly believe that they could be fooled by it. But they are constantly fooled by it. I mean, it is the treatment of Canadians, Australians, and New Zealanders that beggars belief. I, for one, was shocked that people of Western European origin could be so badly treated by their own governments. And these are the governments who have created a reputation worldwide by saying, we are the scions, we are the paragons of social, economic, and political virtue. And we are the ones who are going to go out there and civilize the savages. And they were the very ones who were behaving like savages to their own people. Does that make you think for a moment? And so, by divide and rule, people can easily be fooled. And when they have been fooled, because most of us want life to be the rosy picture that was painted to us of how things were before, even when we're being fooled, we find it, as Mark Twain said, very difficult to realize that we're being fooled. And so that's how it goes. Lesson from this: each one of us needs to do some deep thinking, because there are rough waters to come. There will be more lunges for our human rights and our sovereignty. And at that point, each one of you is going to have to make a call as to what you will do to protect your liberty and your sovereignty. It requires insight. It requires thoughtfulness. But I hope that I've given at least a couple of pointers. Do some more research. Talk to other people. Whatever you do, don't just scoot the stuff under the mattress, under the carpet, and pretend that there's nothing to see here or that there's nothing happening here. That would be the greatest error of them all, because that's the way you ensure that the other team score from those set goals every single time. They don't have to, because there are billions of us and literally only hundreds of the would-be dictators. Thanks very much for joining.